So what are Energy Minister Chris Bowen and his fellow climate crusaders up to over at Azerbaijan at the United Nations Climate Change Conference there? Well, be worried or laugh. For one, Bowen has promised to give other countries at least $50 million more of your money. And then there's this climate change ambassador. I didn't even know we had one, you know. And she reveals that this climate conference is not just about giving away an astonishing amount of your money, but about spreading the whole woke agenda, identity politics and all.
Australia's in a great position to continue to provide increasing climate finance to support developing countries. We have doubled our existing commitment and are on track to deliver $3 billion in climate finance between 2020 and 2025. Of course, outside the negotiations, we're hosting a range of events here at the Australian Pavilion, covering important topics such as gender, First Nations contributions, using trade to drive climate outcomes, and hosting the Net Zero Industry Awards for 2024.
You heard our climate change ambassador talking there about the Australian Pavilion that they've built with your money at this climate conference. So let me show you the opening session. 3 Australian speakers and only 5 people in the audience. And they were given more absurd identity policies. We must look so stupid. Even an acknowledgement of country, even though this meeting is at the other side of the planet.
To the opening panel session of the Australian Pavilion. My name is Claire Anderson and I'm the Group Director of Sustainability Performance at Worley. And I'm very delighted to be here today. And to start, I might, whilst we're not on Australian lands, I'd still like to start with acknowledging the traditional owners of Australia and the Torres Strait Islands and pay my respects to their elders, past, present and emerging.
I wonder if there are any traditional owners there to hear that lovely message. Can you imagine the money we'd save if we had a Prime Minister just called time on this nonsense? You're not going, cut that out, off. But there's Bowen over there with our money in his pocket, and so many activists want him to spend it. So many that the line of them stretched from one end of the conference centre to the next in this gimme cash frenzy. Really. Joining me is Stephen Goreham, Executive Director of the Climate Science Coalition of America and an advisor to the Heartland Institute. His latest book is Green Breakdown, The Coming Renewable Energy Failure. Steve Goreham, thank you so much for your time. It's great to see you again. Who are all these delegates over there?
Andrew, at COP29, there are something like 67,000 delegates from all over the world. And by the way, this is one of the biggest carbon dioxide emitting events of the year. They fly from all over and they use private and public jets and limousines and all sorts of things. And then they fly to Baku, which was originally where the first oil derricks were drilled. And if you drive around there, I understand there are just pumps everywhere. So it's a bit of an ironic sort of an event.
But I guess, you know, when you've got a close to what's a dictatorship there, it makes it all very easy to, it all runs quite smoothly. No one's going to say no to the dictator. So that bit's good, I guess, for them. Look, the only thing of note that I've seen coming out of this, Steve, and tell me if you've spotted something else, is this demand by China and more than 130 other countries, the underdeveloped ones, for the West, countries like yours and mine, to pay them $1.8 trillion a year, Australian money, to supposedly fight global warming. What are you expecting out of this?
Yeah, they have a new thing called a new collective quantified goal to take money from the wealthy nations and give it to the developing nations. And they do classify India and China as developing nations, which is pretty remarkable. Not too many people want to do this. They've also proposed taxing everyone, all of the oil and gas industries. They've proposed taxing airlines. They proposed taxing the wealthy so that they can raise all this money. It's a huge effort here, and it is a lot of groups are pushing back against this.
Well, the ones that would be paying it would have to. I worked out that pro rata, talking Australian money again, it's $1,500 per man, woman and child in the West. So I don't know any government that's going to be signing up to that. But I can understand, Steve, why the Taliban thought it was worth going to this Baku thing, because if they get a slice of that, what might they make of it? But I tell you, what do all these conferences achieve? They seem to me just a tin rattling exercise by poorer countries to guilt the West into giving them free money. What do they actually achieve for the climate?
Well, you're right. That's right. Many of these nations participate to get money. That's their goal. But there has been almost a no change. We've had COPs now, Conference of the Parties, since 1995. We've had 29 of these. We have them just about every year. And by the way, Australia is angling to host COP31, and they're battling it out with Turkey right now. So they want to make a real good showing at COP29 here. But you're right. If you look at what has happened, we have had world CO2 emissions and energy consumption have been rising steadily since 1965. There really is, except for the COVID year 2020, there's been no reduction in CO2 emissions. Energy consumption is up about 50% since the year 2000. And it's going to continue to rise. And then if you look at the world's share of energy, according to the International Energy Agency, 81% of the world's energy still comes from coal, gas, and oil. And that's the same as it was in 1999, despite the fact that the world has had all of these conferences, 29 of them, and spent more than $5 trillion on renewables. So it really isn't having any effect. You really should be calling this a failure.
And maybe a scam. In your latest book, Green Breakdown, and we've talked about this the last time you were on your book, but where you predict that the world is heading for a renewable energy failure. You know, Steve, since then there have been even more signs here that is absolutely going to be the case. I mean, we've got huge delays, cost explosions in our renewable energy projects. You've got investors now walking away from the government's green hydrogen scheme. Green hydrogen was this miracle fuel that was going to get us out of the shtuck. What signs do you see of this breakdown?
Well, there are many, many signs. We're having wind turbines that are that can't get installed off the U.S. coast. We have a electric vehicle kind of a big hiccup this last year. EVs have been losing share in the United States and in Europe. We have, if you look at the renewable equipment stocks globally, they're doing very, very poorly. There's an index called the RENIX Index, RENIXX, of the top 30 industrial green equipment companies. That is down from when it was formed about 2004. And at the same time, the Standard & Poor's 500 has quadrupled. And Tesla is in those 30 companies. It's become a $1 trillion company, but the other 29 are doing terribly. All these charging companies are losing money across the world. None of them can break even. The top 8 solar firms across the world, most of those are Chinese, but their stocks are losing value. I mean, just on and on. And the financial organizations are realizing that it's just very poor investment to go for these renewable companies. So there are a lot of signs that this is about to collapse.
Well, if it wasn't for taxpayer money propping up a lot of this effort, they'd be even in a worse situation. But there it is. It's a big taxpayer money drain. And thank you very much for what you've done to try and highlight this. Steve Goreham, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Andrew.